What's up, y'all? I was thinking about something this morning, and it reminded me of something 14 years ago. My father passed away, and I got the honor and privilege of speaking at his funeral, to preach the gospel at his funeral. And I remember sharing Jesus with folks, and I also remember sharing a lot about my dad. And I told about how he was my hero, and I never had to meet Derek Jeter, who's my favorite baseball player of all time, because I met my hero already, my dad. And at the end of the message, I wrapped up by saying, if I could be 10% of what my dad was, I'd think I was a pretty good guy. And my mom came up to me afterwards and she said, wow, that was a good gospel message, and I'm so proud of you for sharing. But I want you to know something. Your father didn't want you to be like him. She said he wanted you to be better than him. And those words have always stuck with me. My dad, my hero, wanted me to be better than him. And I've used those words to push myself, to discipline myself, to, always work on myself. But it also made me think about some of these biblical heroes that we have, the Moseses and the Abrahams, and even David. David, a man called by God, a man after his own heart. But if we look in Scripture, David also, we see a lot of sin. We see a lot of brokenness. We see a lot of flaws in his character. We see his need for God. And yes, I believe very, very much so that God shows us these men of faith because he wants us to strive to be like, have their similar faith in him. But I also think God includes their flaws for a reason. And I was thinking about it this morning. What if God included all of his, Moses and Abraham and David, a man after his own heart? What if he said, I'm showing you his flaws because I don't want you to just be like his faith. I want you to be better. I want you to strive for even more righteousness. I want you to strive to be even more of a man or a woman after my own heart. What if God included David, and the man after his own heart's flaws, so that we wouldn't be like him, but that we would strive to be better? Now, I firmly believe that we are only made righteous through Christ's death on a cross. I absolutely 100% believe that. But in response to that, our lives are an act of worship. They are an act of sanctification and trying to be more like Christ. And what if God said, hey, David was a man after my own heart, but he still had things to work on. And he said, I included those so that you wouldn't repeat those things. What if God said, all those heroes that you love to study, you got an opportunity to not repeat that stuff, to learn from their mistakes? What if? I think about those things, and I think sometimes we say, well, David was such a good guy, but he was also a sinner. And we use that phrase and those thoughts to not justify our own sin, but to make ourselves feel a little bit better when we make mistakes. And that's true. I think, hey, we have to give ourselves grace, but we also can push ourselves to a next level, right? And maybe God included those. What if God included those flaws and those faults in those strong men of faith so that we would strive a little harder for righteousness? What if it pushes us and motivates us? I've learned a lot about my dad, and since he passed, and the man was not perfect. He's still my hero. I still love him. But I also learned from him, and I learned things that I don't want to do and things where I want to be better. And I just think, what if God gave us scripture about David, the man after his own heart, so that we could go, I love David. I want faith like David, but I want to strive for righteousness in response to Christ's grace, even harder and stronger and more every day. What if we said, I just want to be sanctified more and more so I could be drawn towards the image of Christ every day? What if? I think about these things. I hope you do too. I'm going to pray for my own heart, pray for y'all, that we strive to be more and more like Christ every day. And don't use the flaws of others as a crutch, but as a motivation. And we move forward in our sanctification. Anyway, I hope y'all have a great day. I love y'all, and I'll talk to you soon.